Hi, and welcome to 94.1 FM. This is Egypt, Australia radio show, and the acronym is affectionately known as EARS. And my special guest tonight is Raouf Zaidan.
That's correct, Raouf Zaidan, yes.
And I read it. I saw the lovely plaque in your home in Egypt. So obviously you've got a home in Egypt, but you're in Colorado. And today's recording really celebrates the introduction of Raouf as a vocalist, as an artist, an international artist, with our listeners here in Australia. Welcome.
Thanks, Jerry. It's nice to meet you. And this is my first time to be speaking on Australian radio, so I'm excited to do this.
I have to say, there's so much that we want to ask, and we want to, understand about our international. You're Egyptian born. Tell us a little bit about your history. Tell us about how you became in Egypt, your ancestors, and how did you end up in US?
With the world the way it's going, with the migrations everywhere, and with the terrible tragedies we're noticing, I'm reminded again and again that actually I come from a family of migrants, and I don't say this. I say it knowing how catastrophic it is for people to be forced out of their home country, and I think most people would not go unless they had to, So my father's parents left Lebanon and Syria in the 1880s, 90s. They left a place where there was intolerance and bigotry and problems to come to Egypt, which in those days was a place of openness and opportunity. And they settled in Egypt and had their big family. And my father was one of 6 children. My father was the son who wanted to marry outside of the family genes, because in the Greek Orthodox tradition, your preferred marriage is your cousin, your first cousin. And I think my father's decided, no, I'm going to do different. So he met, my mother was English, and English woman, and whose sister, by the way, migrated to Australia in the 60s as well. So we have 2 sisters. I think they were extraordinary women, my mother and her baby sister, because they both left their homes and went somewhere else, The reason why I ended up in Colorado is that I trained in London as an opera singer, and then I've been back and forth to Egypt through the years because my family was there and family business and things like that. But then I realized I needed to improve my technique and my singing and my experience, and I noticed at international voice competition that I went to, that American singers had a superior technique. I think it's because a lot of great singing teachers left Germany and Europe in the Second World War. Many people left, went to America, and there was established a fine vocal training in America. So I thought I'm going to go and get good training, and that's what brought me to America. I ended up doing a master's in Texas and a doctoral degree in Colorado. And that's where, and I went to Colorado, you won't believe this, I went to Colorado because they had a Gilbert and Sullivan festival. Because even though I'm an opera singer, I loved G and S, And John Reed was directing, and he was one of the greats of the patter baritones of the D'Oyly Carte company. And he was, he was directing in Egypt, not in Egypt, in Colorado. So I came and I did a couple of shows with him, and I realized that Colorado was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. And I now I found out later on, it reminded me of my ancestral home, Lebanon and Syria, with the mountains, So then I decided that's where I was going to be. That's in 86, I'm talking, 1986. I've been back and forth. Finally, I tell people I'm imprisoned because of COVID. I'm imprisoned in Colorado or in heaven. So I'm not complaining about COVID anymore. But that's why I'm here. And I think this is where I want to settle finally, though I see myself as being a person who really is not tied to one particular country. I'm a US citizen now. I'm also Egyptian. I'm also UK, So where do I belong? I don't know where I belong, but I had an uncle who said, don't worry, just be yourself,
One of the things, the fascination, the more we dig into your profile, the character, the personality that you are. I know on good old internet search and social media, you're a journalist. You're an absolute journalist, and that strikes a string or two in my heart. And you moved from that. Isn't it funny how you started off with getting other people's voices as a journalist and recording and that? You've moved back with your own voice as a journalist.
Yes, you're right. I mean, the reason why I was a journalist was my father wanted me to be a chemist, like he was an industrial chemist. Yeah, in fact, he put me in the chemistry department of the American University in Cairo. And I thought, okay, I'll try for a year. And then I realized at the end of the year, no way. So then without him knowing, the American system, I changed over. I went to what I could find. There was no music there. So I thought economics, and that was even worse than chemistry. And out of economics, I went to political science. And then I used to go to all the concerts that were going on in Egypt. I went to every single concert at the Old Opera House. And so I wrote a little review of a concert and put it under the Caravan. It was the newspaper of the university. And just put it. The next day, I heard, Kenneth Love is looking for Raouf Zaidan, he's the head of the journalism department. And he brought me into the classroom, and had my review was up on the blackboard, on one of those things. And he's saying, this is what I've been trying to teach you to do. And, and then he started to edit it. He chopped it completely, he broke it down. And he said to me, just go rewrite it now and I'll have it published tomorrow in the Caravan. So I did that. I did exactly what he said. I corrected it. And then he said, I want you in the program. And so then I did my last year at American University, I did only journalism. So my degree finally was called mass communication, political science, whatever. And then I wrote reviews for many years until I realized you can't be a performer and also an arts critic. You can't do those two things. You're going to get yourself killed by somebody. So I don't write anymore. I mean, I don't never criticize. But
I love the fact that it's wonderful. I'm glad you're not a bean counter. I don't think you were set up to be a bean counter. So I'm glad that you found your voice and now sharing it with the world. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to talk about some of the play stages. You play Figaro. You're also part HMS Pinafore. You've also done Topple in the Fiddler on the Roof.
Actually, he's called Tevye. Topple was a very famous performer of it, but Tevye is the character. Yeah.
Yes. And you've also got. I was going to say you made a fantastic image of that character, Topple. I want to also. I believe you've got an Arabic chapter happening. So you've got a performance. Which ones have been translated in Arabic, and which ones did you perform?
Well, the first was Così fan tutte, and it was the first Arabic translation of that one. I couldn't believe it. I'd done it in Italian and English, and when they said Arabic, I thought, wow. So, the beginning, la mia dora bella capace non è, in Arabic, habibti dora bella la yumkin takhun, which, I thought I can prove that opera works in the language, because we were brought up very much as Egyptians, and my father we went to Arabic schools and all that, so we were very proud of that side of our life and everything, even though not an easy country to be a citizen of, I have to say, but as you probably found out. But so that was Così fan tutte. Then we went on to doing The Marriage of Figaro, in which I did the role of Figaro, and then Don Giovanni, in which I did the role of Leporello, and the last one was Papageno. I've done all of those in our language, and I tell you something, there is nothing more exciting than to look out over the heads of your audience in the opera. They always say, you have to look just above their heads so you include everybody, and to see them paying attention and understanding and going, in fact, I had actors coming up on stage in the interval of Figaro and saying, Zaidan, you were a character. you are measuring the bed for, because you're getting married on the first day of your marriage of Figaro. And I said, yes. He said, we thought opera was just screaming in a foreign language. And now we realize opera is a real play, a real story. And that made me happy, because I think I really want, you know, being an opera singer, you don't want to be in that little exclusive space where nobody can hear you, understand you. I really believe in doing things in the vernacular, you know, and so that's why, you know, wherever I am, I want to try to in fact, I'm learning Spanish now, because in America, Spanish is a very important second language. You know? So.
Look, I'm inspired. So you've got a couple of projects. You've got projects happening in you're head of the departments in opera in Cairo, which has got a very good professional profile. So,
Okay.
Cairo, yes. So some of the activities there, you know, you know, you look forward to some of the plays, like we mentioned, Maria got played in Alexandria, and that was translated also in Arabic, even though they had a different ending. So some of these projects attracts a lot of international people. Are we going to see more of those, Raouf?
You know, Jerry, I really hope so. I really think one of the best ways to bring works of art to new people, you know, to open, is through translation. And my father's uncle, by the way, was a famous writer of historical novels. His name was Jerry Zaidan, and he was also a historian and a journalist. He translated. He believed in translation. He knew many languages. Some people have told me through the years, oh, no, I much prefer it in the original language. And, you know, and that's why we have super titles and subtitles. And I'm going, yes, and I think that's good. I mean, I'm glad that we have super titles or subtitles, because in opera, you want to follow the story. But there is something special about standing on a stage and performing to a public directly with the language. You know, I remember once here in America, we did the Marriage of Figaro in English, you know, and at the dress rehearsal, they were putting the super titles on above, you know, and I said, why are you putting super titles? We're talking in the language of, you know, it's the language of the audience. And they said, oh, you know what opera singers are like, you know, nobody can ever understand them anyway. So I said, I thought, okay, I'm forewarned. I thought, I'm going to say I was the count in the Marriage of Figaro on that occasion. I'm going to look out over the audience, and I'm going to, if anybody looks above my head to the super titles, I'm going to, you know. Well, fortunately, nobody did. They got all my words, and I've been blessed with good diction. And I think it's because it's not just diction, you know, it's not just pronunciation. It's also saying something with intention, saying something with that you really understand. You know, that's the other thing that's important about translation, is that you're genuinely being the character, you know. It's not like you're putting on something on in another language. Maybe it's generally about love, or it's generally about this or that. No, you really are talking about something real. And so that was a way of creating Egyptian actors as well, because, you know, in Egypt, the opera singers, they don't act as in Italy and in other places. You know, an opera, Pavarotti is famous, you know, for his they called him the windmill arms. I mean, you know, but with a voice like that and musicianship like he had, the greatest technique of all, and wonderful tenor, you forgive all of this. But, you know, why can't we aim for communication as well as beautiful sound, as well as, you know, anyway, I could go on for ages on this subject.
Look, I do understand being on stage, it's the engagement and the diction. At the end of the day, like you said, it's engagement with the audience, and you can tell. And it's important to deliver something that people do understand. And once you tell them what they understand, they're more engaging. It's not, you're not telling them something new; they know it. But I just one of the things, and we like you said, and I'm very appreciative of your time. 20 minutes has flown past.
Wow.
We want to know, we really want to know, we are poor in having people like yourself over in Australia, we don't have enough artists, maybe because of our population, maybe because of our distance. Um, we need more engagement. We need professional people like you come and present. When will you do that?
Well, you know, with my 5 lovely cousins, and mainly in Adelaide, South Australia, and my dear friend Merlin Quaife was one of the great sopranos of Australia. And Graham Godfrey is my colleague from the Royal College of Music. He lives in Brisbane. I have good reasons to come back. And you're right, it's far. It was the longest flight I ever took in my life. But what an amazing, magnificent country. And I mean, I just touched the surface there. You know, I don't know if I agree with you totally that Australia needs very much. I mean, I'm glad. I always believe in learning and sharing and culture and cultural exchange and all that. I saw a very high level of vocal performance. I mean, among the great singers of the world have been Australian, Melba, in ancient times, and then God bless Joan Sutherland and other singers. I mean, and I know personally many other very wonderful singers who were trained in Australia. So I think there's a lot that's going on that's right there. I would love to be a person who could come along and share a bit and learn a bit. I mean, I believe in both. And that's why this play of Michael, it might be an opening for some interaction. I mean,
the fabric that I'm talking about, it's been inclusive, or inclusivity in this case. It's the fabric of having, people like yourself who are on international stage, and engagement of those people to some of the Australian audience. So that's not to discredit what we have. It's to enhance and fine tune and being inclusive of that.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I want to touch on something that you were just part of, and that is, of course, the online play called Shut Off, and it translates in Arabic, meaning in English, it translates in English, honor. I'll give you my feedback, but can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, an extraordinary story of a family that emigrated from Iraq at the time of the Gulf War. And that one of the members of the family was right there in Melbourne telling her story. And a man with, I think, an incredible ability to write a wonderful play and a great imagination saw this great story of this fleeing family and created this wonderful play about what happens to a family that is fleeing from certain death and destruction, and to try to find a way, which has happened to so many families in Syria and everywhere else. My family never had that kind of dire circumstances, but I can tell you, so that whole idea of having to leave your homeland and the struggle between holding on to what you had with what you have to. So the play I found absolutely, but mesmerizing, interesting, and I love the way Michael Griffith fashioned this play out of the story of the girl's name is Vivian Toma. Incredible. She did the role of one of my daughters, and I don't know. I mean, we're not too certain about exactly the story, how it went, and all that. But I think, a very believable story, because we know this has happened again and again and again, But to create this wonderful play out of it, and to have the honor of being told, would you do the role of the father, when I had done Tevye, who was another father, another famous father in a migrating family, leaving, escaping, holding on to traditions. And I thought, wow, what a challenge, what a gift, as a person who loves acting, and my whole life I've been following the great actors of the world, the honor of being given a role, to create a role, a new role, was extraordinary. I mean, I just loved it, and especially to have to say lines that were so rich and so expressive.
I want to compliment you and the cast. I was asked by the director Muhammad, who said to me, Jerry, what did you think now that you've seen the video of the play, Sharaf or Honor. And I said to him, I'm still crying. Not because it was so emotional, so many lines. And if I may, there was one line, I've lost it. I think I've got it. Here we go. My sister into your whore, and I was making that uncomfortable for you, huh? You know your trouble, brother. You didn't see them together. He's in love with her. Love would be good for her. Plus, brother, Dejla is getting older, so you'll be here. Who here would marry her? That doesn't matter. No one here can save us. Okay, in case you've forgotten our custom, brother, he can't get married until you do. None of us can. So, Akram, when are you intending to set us free? We all know that there are scores of women waiting out there. If I can come back to you again, Raouf. The one line at the first part, I think, or the second part of the video, where you as a father talks about an opportunity to escape, and your sons, one of them says, you know, you're turning your daughters into prostitutes. You're prostituting your daughters to exit out of a country. Desperation.
Yes, and in a way, it's why this play is so great, really, because there is that opportunistic. There's that father who is wanting to save his entire family, and at the same time he's overlooking. He's going against his own tradition. He'll do anything to save the family, and he can justify it. Well, the son who's against her marrying an American soldier, you know, because, you know, well, the father sees the American soldier as a way out for the whole family. But there is that ruthlessness about the father, Brahim, you know. I mean, he's a calculating man who wants to achieve his goal, you know. And I think it's almost like you have to kill yourself in order to save your family. And this daughter that he adores, and this, you know, so her marrying an American soldier for him is a good thing, but for the brother it's not. For the other brother, it's, you know, it depends. So that what Michael has created is a very real situation, a tension within the family, you know, where things are pulling in, and that's great. Great stories are like that. I mean, it's going to be a tug of war going on, you know. So Brahim isn't a little angel daddy, you know, who's taking care of his lovely little family. No, he's a ruthless, tragic figure who's caught between all these things. What I love about him is that he feels guilty that he stopped his wife from her dancing career, and his daughter is a poetess. I mean, there's this women around him that are so great and so talented, and they've been stopped and limited, you know. And I think his greatest dilemma is, am I going to do to my daughter what I did to my wife, you know?
Yep. You know, there's all those lines and paragraphs in there, Raouf, that really, really stops you, and you think it's been now, it's articulated, it's said, but it's said in a profound way. So I really want to congratulate the cast, yourself. I sort of went, yes, I love Brahim, who's the father that you played, and that was it. And I thought, and then Mo said to me, would you like to interview Raouf? And I said, absolutely yes. The question I have, couple of things, and I do again thank you for the time that you've allocated. Raouf, tell me about the possibility. You know, I'm sitting here thinking, it's going to happen. It's going to be on stage. We're going to be post-COVID. What are the steps required, or when are we likely to see it?
Well, I mean, I've told Michael doing it by Zoom was what we had available, and I'm glad we did it. It gave us a chance to really feel the play and all that.
Yes.
But to do it on stage in a theater in Melbourne and maybe in Cairo, of course, you can imagine a play like that, the impact it'll have in Egypt. And it's a play that, you know, Egyptians in general, they know English. I mean, they can cope with English, but I would like to do it in an Arabic way. But remember, the play is about an American soldier. So there are scenes that will be naturally in English and scenes that will be in Arabic. So an adaptation of the two languages in Egypt would work, but we do it in Australia in English.
Yeah.
I would love an opportunity to join a band of Australian actors, and there are some amazing Australian actors. And in fact, one of the young men doing the soldier, the American soldier, Dylan. I mean, I thought he did an amazing job on 2 days. By the way, he came in at the last minute. I would love to do the play in a theater. I believe in theaters. I believe in acoustic environment. You know, I don't like miking. I don't like, you know, so I would be there in a heartbeat. If somebody said, we're going to do the play in Australia, jump on a plane and come, I'll say yes. Anything to say those amazing lines in a play, which I think is very relevant to the world we are in today. You know, we are in a world of migrating families, of struggles of identity, of struggles of tradition. I mean, and to be able to be an actor doing something relevant to the real world we live in. That's the dream of any actor. I mean, that's what we're fed up of, being actors who are doing something in the Victorian age or whatever. I mean, you do it, of course, because it's wonderful, but to do something that is now, you know, would mean a lot to me. I mean, I would be there. I would be there. If Australia will have me, I'll be there to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
just hook up. I think if we leave it to Mo, he'll be able to, because he's still got. Mo is, of course, Australian,
Egyptian.
Egyptian, but he's got the connection, and he's director and is a professor in Egypt and so forth, and he knows the connections in Australia. So, and like yourself, he's got connections in Australia. Let's just make the suggestions, make it happen. I want to touch on finally again. Links, if you can send me the links that I can share with our listeners of your some of the performances, and news of where you're going to go next, that would be lovely.
Definitely, I'll be sending you a nice big fat email soon.
I sincerely wanted to say thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we started talking about you, the beautiful person that you are, and the layers. There's layers and layers, and we just want to make sure that we get each layer and talk about it, and because there's so much of you to share with our listeners. Thanks again, and good night.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Great to meet you, Jerry.
Bye.